With the recent acquisition of Chromebooks by Intuit and their decision to make Chromebooks specifically available for QuickBooks Online Advanced, if you're looking for a good backup solution for your QuickBooks Online data, then you definitely want to join us as we interview Mike, the CEO of Rewind, and he introduces their backup solution for QuickBooks Online. This is the fun pause where you're wondering like how long until it starts up, but any second here, should already be recording. I wish I could rewind this back and have it start just perfect. Get it? No. So, all right. Well, hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for a quick live demonstration of Rewind. It's a great opportunity. It's a great program that helps you back up your QuickBooks Online data. And we have Mike Potter here with us. You are the CEO of Rewind. Is that correct? Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, would you mind, we can jump into it pretty quickly here. Would you mind telling us a little about you, tell about your application, and tell us what it does, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm the CEO at Rewind. We are a cloud-to-cloud backup company. We started about 5 years ago backing up Shopify stored data. We've since expanded to include BigCommerce stored data and QuickBooks Online data. We're based in Ottawa, Canada. We've got over 10,000 customers across all those different platforms. And we've been backing up QuickBooks data since 2017.
Oh, nice. So quite some time. I mean, it's funny nowadays being in the cloud, we still need to have those additional backups because, you know, everybody thought by going to the cloud, we'd be completely secure and safe. And then we realized even being up there, we have to have that, you know, double redundancy, that protection. So I'm glad to see that this has come out.
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, a lot of people wonder why Rewind exists, right? If you're backing up Shopify and BigCommerce and QuickBooks Online and all this data that lives in the cloud, why is it needed at all? And just to explain to people the difference between what Rewind backs up and what QuickBooks or Shopify or BigCommerce backs up. All those platforms certainly have a copy of your data. They have a backup of your data. What they have is a backup of the entire platform, right? So they have all QuickBooks data, all Shopify data, all BigCommerce data. And so if something were to happen to the whole system, like a meteorite were to hit their servers or something happened to their servers, they could recover it the way it was before that problem happened. But if something happens to your account data, so your QuickBooks data or your Shopify account or your BigCommerce account, they won't go into their big backup and pull out just that needle in a haystack that they need, right? So, you know, QuickBooks has over 3 million customers, backups of 3 million customers, and they got to pick out 1 out of 3 million and what that person needs. They don't do that. So what we do is we back up your specific account. We save that into what we call the Rewind Vault, which is a cloud service that we run. And we track every change that is made to that QuickBooks account. And then anytime you need to rewind that transaction or that invoice or what have you, you can log into Rewind, you rewind it exactly the way it was before the problem happened. So your data is safe. It's account level backups versus the platform level backups that QuickBooks provides.
That's beautiful. And so, boy, can you imagine how large that database is of all the different company files? And like you said, a needle in the haystack of trying to find just one person's data.
Yeah.
And again, more importantly, it's our responsibility to take control of our, you know where our data is and have those backups ourselves, because we can't rely on the big corporate, you know, database to be there if we need it. So I love the fact you can do it this way. Can you tell me tell me a little bit more about how the data is backed up? Like where is that data? Because that's kind of an important question nowadays when it's going to be cross country.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rewind actually runs the backup service for QuickBooks in multiple regions in the world. So we run Rewind in the United States for customers in the US, and for customers outside of the US, we run the service in Canada. So if you're located in the States, your data is stored in the United States, stored and processed in the United States, so it never leaves the US. And if you're located outside the US, your data is stored and processed in Canada. and we run those services completely independently of each other as well.
That is really, really good information. I don't believe I've heard that from anybody else before, and it's so important, so thank you. Do you
Yeah,
mind?
we had to do that actually. Sorry to interrupt you. We had to do that for Shopify because of GDPR support in Europe. So for the other services, we actually run them in multiple regions as well. So for Shopify, we'll run it in Europe and in North America and in the US and in Canada. And all those services are all run independently. So if something happens to Shopify, it doesn't affect our QuickBooks data at all.
That's beautiful. So what, in that case then, what versions of QuickBooks Online do you guys work with? Do you work with the European, the Canadian, the US, like all iterations?
Yeah, any location we can work with that data. So it's supported across all of them. All the connections to QuickBooks are made securely. So there's never any question about whether the data is secure or not. We make all connections into Intuit over SSL. So it's all done securely.
Nice.
And then all the data is what's called encrypted at rest, which means that as it's written to the hard drive, it's encrypted. So if somebody were to ever get access to that hard drive, the data would be of no use to them.
Beautiful. And part of the reason I asked that, just for people watching this later, is the software development kit that, depending on the region of the world that you're at, it's actually different for the different regions, which means it requires additional development for each one. It's not just there's one QuickBooks Online for all. There's actual different SDKs for each one. So that means you've really invested into this relationship. You've taken the time to make sure you're doing the connections the way you need to for each of the different regions. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to see a little bit more about what is the app look like? How do people get signed up? Can you do a little bit of demo for us?
Yeah, so let me share my screen here.
And I also heard you guys were actually in 2019 named in the top 50 like growing companies to watch in Canada, right? By
yes, we were.
Congratulations! That's an amazing feat.
Yeah,
good job.
thank you. Yeah, we had a great year last year. Actually, we were on that list. We were on the top 500 companies, IT companies in Canada, and we were also named the Big Commerce Partner of the Year with one of the other platforms that we back up. So we had a really good 2019, and we're off to a great 2020, which is good.
It's gonna get even better now. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. You can see my screen, I think.
Sure can. Yep.
Perfect. So this is Rewind. I've already logged in. We've got a sample demo account here. As you can see, we do a little bit of work here with Walt Disney World. So we're going to be editing some of that data.
Cool.
You can link multiple accounts to Rewind. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got Shopify, we've got QuickBooks, some MailChimp accounts, some BigCommerce accounts. So you can certainly go in at any time and link multiple QuickBooks accounts. So if you're a bookkeeper or accountant that's working with multiple accounts, you've got one place to log in, you link them all, and you can easily switch between them to see all the data that we've got backed up. We store the data in what's called the Rewind Vault, which is what you're looking at here. So this allows you to see all the things that have changed. So this is a list of changes that have happened in the account. You can see I can just scroll through this and look at any particular item that I want to, whether it be an employee, an account, an invoice that's been updated, etc. And when you find something that you're interested in looking at the history, so this one invoice that we've done for Walt Disney, for instance, let's take a look at that. You can click on that, and it'll give you a bit of a preview of the invoice. So the document number, when the transaction was done, and how much balance is due on it. That's in your live. The one on the left here is in your live QuickBooks account. So this is coming directly from QuickBooks Online, and the one on the right is the version that you're looking at in Rewind. And so you can see that every change that you've made has been saved in Rewind, and you can go back in time. Literally every change that we've made. So, on the 9th, I believe we were at QuickBooks Connect in Toronto, which is why you're seeing a whole bunch of changes here. Let's go back on the 9th and see that version looks exactly the same as the one we're looking at right now. But the one after that has a balance of $101.70. And so you can easily see the difference between the two of them. If you want more detail on what the difference is, you can actually go into what we call the source code view and see it, and it gets highlighted so you can see the difference here. So our Mickey Mouse ears had the amount changed from $450 to $90. The quantity was changed from 10 to 2. And you can see a bunch of other things have changed.
Oh, wow, I could nerd out on this big time. I love that.
Yeah.
It's really, really
So
cool.
So then you can go back in and you can just click rewind to that version. So it says, you know, you're about to rewind this invoice back to the way it was for the one for $508. You're about to rewind it. It may also affect a couple of other things. In this case, we're not going to do that, but just click yes, rewind. And it goes in and it rewinds it back to the way it was. And you can see that that invoice that we got from QuickBooks now is at $508.50.
Now that message that popped up, it said that it may affect these different things. Is that a static message, or does that actually change based on whatever you're manipulating?
Changes based on what you're manipulating, yeah. So in this case, we're changing an invoice and it might affect a bunch of other items in there.
So again, for people watching, that's really important, because as you're going through this stuff, you do want to stop and take the time to read that, so you really understand what other aspects of your accounting you may be impacting, and you know what else you should go and check real quickly if you're doing a major push of this nature. So that's great.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So this is the only backup solution for QuickBooks that allows you to rewind individual transactions like this. All the other ones generally take a snapshot of your file and then allow you to rewind back to a certain point in time. Rewind's the only one that tracks things individually and allows you to rewind individual items. So let's go to that sort of second use case, right? Which is I know I've messed up more than just this one invoice.
Yeah.
So what do I do, right? So I've messed up a whole bunch of things, or actually accountants never mess it up. It's always the clients that seem to mess it up, right? So the client has gone in and messed up a whole bunch of things. So you can go in, you can use your account rewind. And this is to restore all items within a specific type or the entire account back to a specific date and time. So what we mean by that is, unlike QuickBooks Desktop or some of the other QuickBooks backup apps that are out there, you can actually pick just the items. If you know just the item types that you want to rewind, you can actually just rewind those without touching anything else. So if you go in and select, like, you know, you've made some entries in the journal entry, for instance, but you've made them in the wrong account. And after you made those journal entries, a bunch of other things were imported, some other work was done, customers went in and paid some invoices, etc. All you really need to do is rewind your journal entries. But with all the other backup solutions and the way it was with QuickBooks Desktop, you would have had to rewind back to before the journal entries and lose all that other work, right? Yes. In this case, you can say, look, I just want to rewind my journal entries. That's all. I know that's the source of the problem. So rewind my journal entries back to the way they were on January 5th at 12 a.m. And then you go in and you rewind those items, and you'll get an email once that's done. Now, you can select multiple items if you want. So if you know it's, you know, the bill payments and the bills or whatever, you can do that. And then obviously, if you don't know what the problem is, right? It's a massive problem. It's affecting multiple things. Look, I really don't know what's gone on, but I have to rewind everything. You just select all your item types and it does everything back to the way it was January 5th or whatever the date and time was. And it'll rewind your account back to the way that was before the problem happened.
So in a situation like this, immediately I start to think about like undeposited funds, where people make mistakes with the customer payments and maybe they pulled it in, they've reconciled. I would assume if you're undoing all of that stuff, what are the pitfalls? And will it undo the reconciliations? Will we see that message again saying, hey, by the way, when you do this, you need to recognize you're going to have these different things you have to pay attention to as well, right? So yeah, you can undo a journal entry, but there's going to be more behind that too.
Yeah, so it won't touch reconciled items. In fact, it has an issue with reconciled items. So normally we'll go in and tell our customers, look, if you want us to do this, you have to unlink those transactions and unreconcile them, and then we can undo them. But if they're reconciled, it won't undo that action. Okay. So there are some safety nets put in place from Intuit's perspective that stop you from doing things. We've had some requests or some questions before on, like, you know, if you rewind a payment, does it bring the money back? Which it obviously doesn't. You can't, we don't actually go into the bank and pull the stuff back, or if you've paid an employee, you know, can you get the money back? So it doesn't do that. It really just works on the transaction level.
Gotta give him an A for effort, though. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
creative.
that's right, right? Hey, I
So,
paid this invoice that I shouldn't have paid. Can I? I just want to undo that. I want to get that money back.
yeah. So Caleb
Um,
Jenkins is in the watching with us, and he was actually asking, how do I select various transactions to rewind? So, like with your previous screen where you had the individual ones, can I bulk like check, 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 check different transactions, or is it
yeah,
one at a
right
time?
now, so right now you can't. You have to go in one at a time and then find a version that you want and then rewind those. You can select multiple things. So, if you've got multiple journal entries and multiple invoices, you can rewind those back to a certain date and time. We found that's worked well for most people so far. Generally, they know what is the problem and what date they want to go to. But if there are other use cases, like we want to pick certain invoices and certain journal entries in a certain period of time, we'd be happy to talk and listen to those use cases. We haven't seen those personally, and we've got a few thousand customers that are using the solution. But if they exist, we're happy to add features like that into the product.
So I should warn you that whenever I find an app, even if it like if it's a great app, I absolutely love doing my best to push it past its limits and try to break it wherever possible. So
Yeah, that's
one
great.
other question I would have is, what about the ability to select the user that you want to rewind the stuff that a specific person did? Would that be possible?
Unfortunately, yeah. So unfortunately, Intuit doesn't send us the information on who did what change. So while we know the changes that were made, and we track those in the vault,
Okay.
and you can see that we track each version, we actually don't know who changed this version on January 15th.
Okay.
And we've requested that information. We get that request a lot, right? Because I think what a lot of people are looking for is kind of like an audit log that allows you to see the changes and then undo certain
Yeah.
changes, and being able to have an audit log that included not only what was changed but by who, and with a little easy button to undo that change, is a version of this that we've got coming. But we just don't get the who data, so we've got everything
Okay.
but who actually made the change, unfortunately. But great
That
feedback for Intuit to ask them to include that in their API. And if they did, we would certainly add it, because we hear that a lot.
I think part of the reason that is that way is it took them some time, but Intuit actually has now established it where if you are a firm or accountant, you actually, the company, the users of the company will only see one name from the firm of who did the activities. So you would be running into that same roadblock that you wouldn't be able to get the individual information because it's been coded into QuickBooks Online that way. So
Right.
good point. And then just again for Caleb, so yes, Caleb, you can choose one at a time transactions through here, so you can do one at a time. You just couldn't do like three at once, but you can absolutely do individual ones.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and just show that again, right? So this is the invoice that we had for Walt Disney. I guess we changed it from 508 to $101. So the current version is $101. The version that we last backed up on January 6th, so the one before this date, was $508, and you can easily just rewind that one item back by clicking on that, and yes, rewind.
So backing up the information, what are the options? Where can it get backed up to? Where can it be saved? What can you tell me about that?
Perfect. So Rewind in general has been designed to really limit the number of options that people have. Generally speaking, I think most people are overthink a lot of details related to backups, and we really don't want people having to think too much about this. So there's no settings other than where would you like your data stored. So we talked earlier about whether you want it stored in Canada or the US. That's the only option. When Rewind is installed, you tell us where to install your data. And if Intuit were to provide us the location of the account, like your address, for instance, we would probably take that option away for people. Other than that, there are really no settings in this application. You can't set where the data is going to, other than that, you can't set where the data is going to be backed up to. You can't set when we back up the data. In fact, the backups happen on a continuous basis. So while we do have this nice backup now button that you can click at any time, it really, you don't need to do that ever. You'll notice that the invoice that I changed earlier for Walt Disney has been updated as of today, and we never ran a backup. So as you're making changes in QuickBooks Online, all those changes are automatically being tracked in Rewind. You never have to come in and click a backup button. It happens automatically. If
So,
you want to feel better and click the button, you can click it at any time and we will run a backup at that time. But we've already tracked all the changes to your account.
so what you're saying is, people, if you know you're about to mess up your books, go click the backup now first, and then no. So
actually,
how?
it won't matter. It won't matter because
Yeah,
we've got you
exactly.
covered. Don't worry about it.
Is it actually, I mean, are you saying that it's close to real time? So like, I mean, is this on a cycle once a minute, every 5 minutes, or is it literally if I made 14 changes because I'm using a push program, will it go and make all those different changes if I went back in there 30 seconds later?
It's as fast as QuickBooks will send it to us.
Okay.
So it's actually
Good
dependent
point.
on Intuit sending us the changes. So you can see in this case, the invoice has actually been restored. So I just refreshed the page, and that was 2 minutes ago. And it's possible that Intuit would have sent us that, you know, within seconds of it happening. And sometimes they take up to 5 minutes. But as soon as they send us the change, it's processed in Rewind.
Beautiful. And so some of the other, with the other types of accounts that you do, actually, better question, more important. So one of the biggest ones everybody's always going to ask, if people started trying to use the backup programs as a way to take a company file maybe that was dirty and horrible and they wanted to copy and paste it over a new company file, or really if you've got your 5 for 5s or something of that nature, they want to basically they want to take one and put it over a different company file.
Yeah.
Can you do that? I see the copy data option there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about how that works?
Yeah, so if you had 2 accounts linked, in this case, I don't have 2 accounts linked, but we've just finished this work up. If some of you are signed up and looking for this and don't see it, you can just click on the little icon in the bottom right-hand corner, call up support, and just ask to be added to the list of people who can see this. So it's literally, you know, just recently finished. And all you need to do is link 2 accounts, and then you can copy from any of those accounts into a destination store. So in this case, I can't copy from one account to itself. But if I had another account linked, it would show up here, and it'll copy the data from one into the other. Generally, we're hoping that, would you mean pick and choose
the data.
what
so
data
like,
gets copied? Right, no, at this time, it'll make a full copy of the account. And we prefer that the destination account be empty to avoid any conflicts. But if it's not, we'll try and merge the 2 of them. But we prefer them to be empty, which is what we've heard most people doing, like what you described in terms of copying it from one type of account to another.
Perfect. And then when you're doing a copy, you did already say you prefer that it's empty. Will it still work if there was another, you know, like if they opened up a company file but they only had a chart of accounts, would it still work but maybe have challenges, or what would happen?
It should still work. Yeah, if the chart of accounts exists, it should still work, and it should try and merge them. We're always very careful about making sure that the data that we're putting in is not messing up anything that's already there. Yeah. So, you know, generally we're a very conservative company. We take data accuracy very seriously. And so we try and make sure that we're not messing anything up. So we prefer it to be empty. If it's there, we'll do our best to merge it. And in the cases where we don't understand what to do, you'll end up with an error, and we'll go in and manually fix that up.
Okay. And along those same means, if you're going in, you're going backwards on a transaction, we know that QuickBooks Online doesn't ever actually delete anything. It will inactivate things in a sense. So if you had to change your chart accounts, or you were going backwards, I assume it's the same thing, that if you had extra accounts, they become inactive inside of the company file. They're not obliterated and gone. They're just inactive and deleted that way. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else? Let's see. Other questions? Any questions from people watching either through Zoom or Facebook? Please feel free to add them in. I will be more than happy to ask them. We've gone through quite a few of them. There are some extra comments that, you know, different companies. I'm gonna leave the comment as it is. I think that may have been you, Caleb, as well. But what is on the product? Like, what do you have planned coming in the future? What's next that you're looking to build out,
So we'd like
feature-wise for
to,
this?
yeah, good question. We get that question quite a bit. So one of the ones that we'd like to work on is a bit more detail on these pages here. So this invoice, for instance, has the document number, transaction, due date, and balance. We'd love feedback from users on what else they would like to see on these cards to make them more useful. So we've heard something around like line items, for instance, and being able to see what items are on each invoice would be really useful. We showed that in the source view, but we can move that to the nicer looking view that we want people spending more time in. There are some items when you go into Rewind an account where, like I said earlier, we prioritize making sure that the data is put back accurately. And so there are still some cases where we are manually putting the data back for customers. So it's not an automatic rewind in some cases. We're trying to reduce those down to make the entire system automated. We're doing that right now just so that we can learn about all the dependencies and make sure that as we automate things that it's going back correctly. And as we've gotten more customers on this platform, we've learned quite a bit. So, you know, we're working on those, but generally we expect that to be done. We've also thought about like alerts and how we can alert people if we notice something that's incorrect in their account or in their file or something that's abnormal. So if a customer or a client goes in and maybe pays an invoice after the books have been closed or something like that, or goes in to make changes to the account after the books have been closed, we could proactively alert people. So we're looking for feedback from users around what type of indications would we have that there's a problem in the file that may be a problem down the road, and we'd like to proactively alert customers before that becomes a bigger problem, right? So before other transactions happen or before other actions in the file happen, we can alert you and say, hey, you know, this is a problem and you should really go in and fix this before that happens. So those are some of the things that we've thought about. You know, we really do prioritize future work based on customer feedback. So, you know, as we get some larger accounts, so we're talking some fairly large accounting companies now, we've had requests for limiting who can access which vaults.
Nice.
So as you've got a team of accountants, some people want to have access to some accounts and not other ones. That's on our list of things to do as well. So, you know, no shortage of suggestions as always. Yeah, always is. And like I said, it just gets prioritized based on you know, feedback we get from customers. So we've got some ideas. We try and validate that with our customers, and then as we hear what they're looking for, we prioritize it that way.
Do you on your website, do you guys have a product roadmap or a place for people to make those suggestions? What's the best way to have their voice?
Yeah, good question. Actually, we don't have a public roadmap. Best way would be to always ask support, right? So just hit that little intercom button in the bottom right hand corner and just start a conversation with us and say, hey, you know, I'd really like Rewind to do X, and then we'll work on all those suggestions.
And then tell us about how your support works. Is it primarily through the chat widget? Is it, you know, email responses? What's the different methods that people can request support?
Yeah, so we've got email support, so you can email help@rewind.io. We've got chat-based support here as well, and we've got phone-based support. So you can call our 1-800 number and get phone-based support from 9 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Beautiful. Okay. And of course, everybody's going to want to know pricing. How do they get set up? What can you tell me? Tell us all about what's the pricing look like for this?
Yeah, so pricing is fairly consistent, I think, across most of the backup apps in QuickBooks Online. So pricing for Rewind is $5 per account per month.
Okay.
There's a minimum of $10 a month. So if you've just got one account, it's $10, but otherwise it's $5 for each account per month. Okay. And there are some volume discounts available as customers get into the hundreds or thousands of accounts. Wow. We're happy to work with them on you know, volumes of that size.
That is a lot of accounts that somebody would need. Excuse me real quick here.
Yeah.
Like this thing. So the at $5 an account, literally you can't even go buy, can't even call it $5 footlong anymore. You can't even buy a $5 sandwich, for it costs more than that. So
Yeah, we really
and
tried to price it where it's a no-brainer, right?
yeah,
Like we really want everybody to be backing up all of their accounts. There shouldn't be any second guesses. The thing we say about a backup, and you alluded to it earlier, right? You don't get a warning before you need it, and that's the unfortunate part about this, is that at some point you're going to need it, and we just hope that you've got a backup before you need it. So we've really tried to price it at a point where people say, yeah, you know what, that's a no-brainer. I can definitely charge my clients $5 or $10 a month. If they signed up on their own, it's 10, and if you sign up for them, it's 5. So we hope that a lot of the accountants and bookkeepers are charging that back at $10 at that rate. And then trying to make a little bit of money off it as well, because it really is needed. And I think once people understand the difference between what QuickBooks does and what we do, a lot of our customers just love the fact that they've got that peace of mind that their data is protected.
So Caleb had a couple other suggestions that he felt would be good future looking options. One of the biggest things we talk to people about is their desire to take their online data and be able to back it up for future, or even to desktop. So for example, if we offboard a client, we always try to take a backup of all the information, because it's that snapshot, so we know exactly how the file ended at that time. So we don't have to worry about somebody coming in afterwards and all of a sudden changing things and then trying to blame us possibly. So that would be one area. And then also he was saying that it would be interesting to see the ability to share with certain clients, the company management. Now, I should say to everybody, those who are not familiar with like software development, when you start talking about user permissions and you're developing that out, you're literally almost doubling the amount of work, because you have to set up and actually every checkbox that you say this person can do this or do that is a whole new set of code. So, when you see companies that have the multi-level access and user permissions, it's a lot of work. Just know that.
Yeah.
So
the export functionality is actually available now. It's not user initiated, but at any point you can just click on that help icon in the bottom right and just say, hey, can you export my data? And we'll create a zip file of it and send it to customers automatically. So that's available. We will very likely put that into the product so that it's automatic and you don't have to request help. But until we do that, it's just a simple help request. The notion of giving access to customers is interesting, or to clients is interesting. I think we'd want to talk with more customers about that. Generally, the feedback we've heard is that in a lot of cases, we're protecting the account against what they're doing. So giving them access to Rewind is probably not, you may not want to do that, because it's just another complex thing that they now have the ability to change data in their account. So we'd have to work on that. But certainly, user permissions and limiting employee access to certain accounts or files, that's definitely on our list.
And then I think my last question, unless other people pop other ones in, would be the export file. What kind of file, what are the file types? What's it exported as?
So it exports the files in what's called JSON format, which is what QuickBooks sends to us.
Okay.
So it's generally not something that a non-technical person would be able to open and read. In order to bring that information back in, you'd require the use of a developer. But there is no file format that QuickBooks makes that would be importable back into QuickBooks Online. So we give you the raw data, and regardless of however you have that data, whether it be in CSV or JSON or whatever, you're going to need some developer to bring that data back into Rewind. So we give it to you in a very technical format. And if customers had feedback that they'd prefer that in CSV, because there might be some other use cases, we'd be happy to talk about exporting it in different formats.
Yeah, having a CSV or something of that nature, where it's like maybe each of the different entities or tables are a different CSV, it enables us the ability, if we're doing a cleanup job and we need to gather certain information, we can then, it takes a technical person, right? But we can grab the good stuff and rebuild it off of that information so we can get the valuable stuff if we need to. So great.
Interesting.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for jumping in. I know this was kind of an impromptu. Congratulations on this great opportunity for Rewind to really grow in the market, and we hope to see this successful opportunity for you guys. It sounds like it's a great product.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very happy about it, and you know, backups is really all we do, and we've been doing it for 4 years now, and we've got no plans to stop anytime soon. So we're looking forward to working with you and others.
Please, if you don't mind, can you pull up your website, and before we go, tell everybody how to reach you, what they should be doing to test it out and get their hands in the product.
Absolutely. So you can go to rewind.io. Just click on the little QuickBooks Online icon, and it's got a link to sign up directly there. So just click the Get Started button, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you again for your time, and to everybody watching, here's wishing you all a very successful week.